Tim Walz is also out on the new media tour and trying to help her when he's not defending his comments on the Electoral College. And he sits down with Michael Strahan, who's the best thing ABC has going. And Strahan actually asks him about his many, many lies. There's a much longer list than actually came up, but he did raise it to his credit. Here's how that went in SOT 8.
You've made some statements that just aren't true. And the comment about weapons of war that I carried in war, which you didn't. You said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre when you weren't. You kind of chalked it all up to bad grammar or getting the dates wrong.
Yeah.
But your opponents say you lied to make yourself look better. Do they have a point?
Well, look, 35 years ago, got the opportunity to be in Hong Kong, be in China, learned a lot about it, served 24 years in the National Guard, passionately, in an instance, talking about gun violence in schools, on an instance there, proud of the service that I've done, proud to be a teacher in that classroom, proud to have been very public all these years, and owning it when I, said, look, I was there in August of '89. And I think the policies, whether it be dealing with China and understanding China's human rights record, what you can be certain there is that Kamala Harris and I aren't going to, pick dictators on speed dial.
Well, but it's one of the things with trust. So there are going to be some people who say, we can't trust him to even tell the truth about himself.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Well, I said they know who I am. I know who I am. I know the work that I've done. I know that things get spun in a political environment.
And Vice President Harris said that she told you to be a little bit more careful on how you say things.
Well, I did it, even the other day of just speaking passionately about these gun violence situations and meeting with these survivors. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I do think in these positions, whether it be governor or being vice president of the United States, you do need to be careful. You do need to be a little more thoughtful on it.
Okay, guys, I will submit to you that the American people are not dumb. And I would submit to you that the American people will look over "I'm friends with school shooters," which he said in that vice presidential debate, as him misspeaking. Everyone will give him that grace. But it's not going to work on this litany of other lies, because you don't misspeak over and over and over and over again the very same way, which is to make you look better on multiple subjects, and the American people continue with the grace. It's just not how lies work. That Tiananmen Square thing, we've gone over this with the audience, but we found another instance of him doing it on camera. We had told the audience about this earlier, and we had only had the written transcript of it, but we have since found the on-camera version. And here is the latest offering. This is from a May 2014 congressional hearing where CNN's K-File had highlighted this, but again, without a link to the actual sound. It was a hearing for the Congressional Executive Commission on China. And take a listen to how he described where he was when Tiananmen Square happened in 1989.
It certainly had an enduring influence on me. As a young man, I was just going to teach high school in Foshan in Guangdong, and was in Hong Kong in May of '89. And as the events were unfolding, several of us went in, and I still remember the train station in Hong Kong. It was a large number, especially European, I think, very angry that we would still go after what had happened.
And that, of course, was not the only time. Here's a little walk down memory lane. Watch.
Yeah, I was in Hong Kong. So we were the first group of American high school teachers to teach in Chinese high school. But I was in Hong Kong when it happened. I was in Hong Kong on June 4th when Tiananmen happened.
I was in Hong Kong on June 4th, 1989, when, of course, Tiananmen Square happened.
And on, because we could go through the written record of it, too. So you tell me, Sean Spicer, whether I'm right in my theory about the American people.
Absolutely. Look, I'll say this. Among the four of us, I have the most expertise at screwing up and making mistakes at the highest levels. So I think I'm somewhat of an expert when it comes to some of these things. And there's a big difference between making a mistake, getting somebody's name wrong, and lying, right? And we have allowed the media to talk to us about how much Donald Trump and everyone on the right lies and spreads misinformation. He lied about being in Tiananmen Square. And I'm sorry, you don't go, you know what, the more I thought about it, it was the Target in Edina. Like Tiananmen Square during a high profile event like that is pretty notable. You don't go, you know, you were right, I wasn't there. He lied about IVF. He lied about receiving a Chamber of Commerce award in Nebraska. He lied about his rank as a military official. And I'm sorry, as somebody who has actually done that, like served, you don't lie about your rank the way that he did. You lied about carrying weapons of war. It's a pattern. He's a fabulist. He lies about everything. And for some reason, we excuse this to bad grammar and I'm a knucklehead. He has a pattern of lying and no one else seems to call him on it. They just excuse it. You saw Strahan ask the question, as you pointed out, but there's no follow-up. I mean, he gets away with it and says, yeah, you know, I used bad grammar. Bad grammar is which, not that, not lying about where you were in China versus Minnesota.
It would be so great to follow up and actually say, come on, Governor, you would know if you were in Tiananmen Square, if you were in China when Tiananmen Square happened. You just like, you know, if you're in southern Manhattan on the day of 9/11, just like you knew if you were at Pearl Harbor on D-Day, you know if you are actually there or not. You're really asking this audience to believe you just mixed up the dates? That's the follow-up. And by the way, on the retired Command Sergeant Major matter, that's the one to zero in on. Because that he said, I think we counted over a dozen times. I mean, that one is really kind of his favorite, to say that he's a retired Command Sergeant Major. That really is a stolen valor situation where he elevated his rank inappropriately. And there's no way he can get away with, I misspoke. I mean, if I interviewed Tim Walz, I'd have it on my phone. I would press play and I would say, you really want us to believe that that's all bad grammar? That's all you speaking passionately? You didn't understand that you never attained that rank? You didn't do the work. You didn't do the training. And you didn't rightly have that title, sir. See what he says then. It doesn't, you actually don't have to be Megyn Kelly, who's a former litigator, to do it. You just have to be a good journalist. Dan, you take it.
Megyn, there's an old expression that my wife likes to use, which is, pardon my language, if you have to eat shit, don't nibble. And he just keeps nibbling around and around in circles. As you say, if it was just one of these things, you could kind of tap dance and like try to move on. But to Sean's point, it's so prevalent, just go to the character issue. And as Democrats, we would rather talk about the fact that Trump has trouble with the truth and like all of this stuff. And you completely undercut yourself when your own vice president is constantly having to explain one thing after the other. And all he can say is, I'm a knucklehead, and it's all over Saturday Night Live. I mean, even they're laughing at him.
I'm a knucklehead was not a great headline for them coming out of the debate. I realized they wanted to focus more on 2020. But does that limit, would you say, Mark, Tim Walz's ability to really go out there and be a surrogate for her? Not necessarily on the campaign trail, but when he's dealing with a reporter. Because now enough reporters have seen the litany that they do feel compelled to ask about it.
I think I need to recuse myself from this one because I, too, was in Hong Kong the day of the Tiananmen Square attack. So, look, he has trouble with the truth. And you could say it's psychotic, or you could say it's purposeful and conniving. But the reality is people don't vote for the bottom of the ticket. And although he is asked about it in that interview, and although it's in the, the crevices of stories about him, people aren't focused on him. The press is still pro-Harris enough that it's not going to be what it should be. And which should also be for Donald Trump, which is they both picked guys who are on the bubble of, is this person ready to be president? They both picked people about whom a lot of Americans have doubts, but I don't think they're escalating or have escalated or will escalate to the point where this will be a voting issue. He doesn't get covered very much. J.D. Vance doesn't get covered very much. It's the normal rhythm. As long as you clear the bar, ready to be president, and that's the perception by the press, and I think a lot of the public, it's not top of mind. So I think it'd be scary to a lot of people if he became president, if he hadn't proven to people that there's an explanation here that's comforting, because it's not comforting to watch those videos. But I don't think it's going to impact the race.
J.D. Vance, I think, proved that he's up to the job at that vice presidential debate. However, he still has a hurdle to overcome when it comes to likability, given the way the press went for him when he first was launched as the second half of the ticket. And he's working on it. I will give a shout out to our pals over at the Ruthless program, as they call it, who managed to get J.D. Vance out on a fishing boat in Michigan, I think it was Michigan, in a hilarious bit that they just dropped on their YouTube channel where just the audience knows these guys very well because they come on regularly. They split up Josh Holmes with JD from Smug and Duncan and Ashbrook, and they were in a fishing competition. The two boats went out, and let's just say Smug and crew were not entirely above board when it came to the vote count. Let's watch. It's Smug reeling in a fish.
Oh, no.
JD looking
Buddy,
confused.
They got a fish over there. Oh, no. Oh, no.
That is a dead fish. Look at that fish.
It's a dead fish. It doesn't count.
It's a dead fish!
It has to be alive.
I think the thing's frozen.
Get that net out there!
Smug's reeling it in.
JD's got to get out there.
I'd like a hand recount of that fish because none of us think that fish is actually alive.
Ballot harvesting over here.
Let me see this guy.
Ballot harvesting.
He's a little cold.
He may have been. They actually got a frozen fish. You guys are so full of shit. When I saw it, I was like, that fish is not moving. This is like the hanging Chad of fishing competitions. No, this ballot's rejected.
I'm sorry, but that's just too good, Dan. He was there with his son, too. I mean, that anybody who watches that is going to have to smile. This show encourages honest conversations, which is not always easy in today's media environment with big tech companies deciding who and what gets amplified and censored. But there is a new platform that prioritizes free speech and transparency without controlling the narrative, and it's called Ground News. Ground News is an app and a website that aggregates related articles from around the world, highlighting each source's political bias and corporate influence. Ground News reveals for every single story how media narratives are shaping the conversation and who's covering the topic. It makes it easier to navigate the news and may even be helpful to you for the next time your liberal friends send you a headline from their favorite biased news source. They're offering our viewers 40% off their Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access to their website and app. Ground News is independent and supported by subscribers, not corporate interests. So check them out at groundnews.com/Megyn. That's ground, GROUND news.com/MEGYN. Groundnews.com/Megyn. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.